It's 4:19 on a Tuesday. Do you know where your inventory is? I'm going to show you a cool way to track your inventory that's not the same old custom SKU way. Coming right up. After you've been selling online for more than, say, 5 minutes, you realize that you really need a system to keep track of where your inventory is. There's nothing worse than going to ship something and realizing you can't find it. And somehow the lost item is preposterously, ridiculously elusive. Like you might only have 2 bins of stuff and you look through both of them 30 times and it's not in there, but somehow it is. So it's really essential to set up some kind of inventory system. A lot of people who sell on eBay use this custom label SKU field here in listings. This is hidden from buyers. It's only something you can see on the back end. And it's a pretty good way of doing things. You set up some system, like you give each one of your physical bins in real life a letter, and then you just type the letter in here. When you go to ship your items, you check the custom SKU field, you see it's in bin A, you go grab it, there you go. Some people also will put their location code right in the title, so it's faster to find when they're shipping. Say, your whatever the title is, and then just put your code for your location in there. So it is slightly faster and easier, but it could be distracting to your buyers. Probably not, but it's just not as clean as one might like. And my problem with this whole idea of putting the location code in the eBay listing at all is twofold. Firstly, I don't know where my location is going to be when I'm doing listings half the time, or probably more than half the time, most of the time, because I take my photos and then my items go into a sort of to be filed area to be processed, and I don't necessarily know where I'm going to put them yet. The other problem is that if you sell on a platform other than eBay, examples being Poshmark, Mercari, Etsy, any of the Let Go, OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, blah, blah, blah type things, there isn't a custom SKU field. So you have to either put your code in your title or your description. It's kind of hard to find when you go to ship, might be cut off in the view you get, or you have to dig through your description. It's just not convenient. So my idea was that it would be best to have an unrelated third-party sort of system that can store everything from whatever platform, be really easy to search. And of course, that thing would be a database. So I've experimented with a few. I started out with a system using Google Sheets, and it got really unwieldy really fast. It's not slow or hard to search. It's just hard to keep it looking decent in any sort of non-time consuming way, and it just was kind of crazy. That's not really what a spreadsheet is meant for. So I investigated some databases. So basically any customizable database program out there on the market is going to work, as long as you can decide what fields you put your data in, and you can easily put your data in and easily search for it. It's going to be fine. There's lots of choices. You might already own one for some other reason. For a long time, I was using one called Tapforms on the Mac, which I highly recommend. It's great. And it syncs seamlessly between mobile and desktop. But the one I'm going to show you today, although it's very similar to that, is actually open source, which is awesome. And it is available for Mac or Windows or Linux. So it's much more friendly in that way, being cross-platform. And it's really super simple. So the name of this database is called Symphytum, and you can get it from this website. Like I said, it's open source, so it's free. And this is GitHub, which, if you don't know what that is, it's where developers store their stuff. It's kind of a long story, and you don't really need to hear it. But basically, there's this whole way that people do version control in development, and GitHub is often a part of it. And when people release open source software, they often do it on GitHub because it is a community where people can share and collaborate and download things and upload things and so forth. But you don't really need to know anything about that. You just need to go to this URL, which I will link down below, and scroll past all this stuff. Scroll till this area that says download. So here's the Windows download. This is just an exe installer. Here's the Mac one, a DMG installer. And for Linux, there's a few different ways you can grab it. And if you're a Linux person, you probably have a preference. You can also build it from source if you really want to, but don't worry about that. So I grabbed the Mac version here. It installs in just a couple seconds. It's all automatic. It's like a normal installer. The only thing is that you might have to give it permission in your system preferences if you are not set up to accept software for independent developers. I'm not sure if there's the same security control on Windows, but on Mac, that is a built-in thing. Download that and install it. Like I said, it'll take just a few seconds. Once you download, install, and open Symphytum, it's going to look like this. And the first thing we need to do is actually build and customize our database. I know that sounds really intimidating, but it's actually super crazy easy. The concept here is we have collections. Each collection is a database, and you can think of it like a file folder. So you can have a file folder that contains all your inventory on separate pieces of paper. You could also have another file folder that contains all the movies you own on separate pieces of paper, and another one that contains a list of recipes or whatever you want. So you can actually use this program for many things, but at this point we're just going to build our reseller inventory. So we create a new collection using this plus sign up above collections here, and we'll call it inventory. Then we need to populate that with pieces of paper. Each one is an item. But before we do that, we want to build some forms on the pieces of paper so we can fill them out easily and have them be consistent. To do that, we use these tools here, which are just create a new form, duplicate a form, and delete our field, form or field, whatever you want to call it. So let's start by creating the first field, which I'm going to just make a text field, and it's going to be item. So this is where I'm going to put the name of my item and hit next. I'm not going to make it required. I could, but I'm trying to keep this process as frictionless as possible. So finish. All right, now let's look at a record to see what it looks like. So we go over to here to new record. And so far, this is what we've got, item, and then a field we can click in. Of course, what we really need is to associate the item with a location. You can have any kind of system you want, and you can also use any kind of form fields to make it happen. In my world, I have lettered bins. I also have a file cabinet with small drawers, which I think of as 3 columns and 11 rows, so it's sort of a grid system. I also have a bureau with a bunch of drawers, which I have lettered, and a few other random places that I keep things. So I'm gonna do my system like this. You can do yours however you want. I'm gonna create another field, and in this case I'm gonna make it a pull down list because there's a finite number of kinds of places it could be, and in this world that's called combo box, and I'm gonna call that location type. It asks me what the choices should be. Of course I can modify this later if I develop a new kind of location or take one out of service. So I have bins, so we'll have bin, and we'll have file cabinet, and we'll have bureau, and we'll have backhaul, and we'll have this is just my world, yours may vary, and we'll have flat file. There's probably one or two others, but this will definitely do for sample. And we can also choose the most common one to be the default, which in this case is probably bins. So I'll put those in there and then hit finish. And now I have this nice pull down list of the items I just wrote in there. Finally, in some of those places, or most of those places, there's sort of a sublocation. So a bin will have a letter, or even a letter and a number if it has boxes or files inside it. My file cabinet has a grid of drawers, like I was saying. So I'm going to add another field in my system, and I'm going to make it just text and call it SubLocation. Of course, you can use another drop-down list. You can just have one location field. You can do this however you want. You could also use a checkbox to say, like, is it in the cellar, yes or no? You can have an image if you want to take a picture of where it is, anything like that. So we'll hit next. I'm not requiring it, and there we go. Now I can move these around a little to make it make the most sense for me. So I'm going to say it's like this. All right, so there's my first record. And I can actually use this to type in now. So say I were ready to list some inventory. We'll say just a random thing. Dog postcard is in the file cabinet and it's in drawer A2. There we go. And then I move on to my next one and type it. Now the cool thing is you can also view these in a table view, and I think this is going to make for even faster data entry for most people. So I can just cruise along here. I can hit spacebar to pull this down and then arrows to select something. Let's see, and return and A3 and so on and so forth. You can also use this duplicate to create another field exactly like the last one. So if you're listing a bunch of stuff all in A3, keep hitting duplicate and changing whatever is different. So that is really the whole shebang of creating a database. We have forms, we can see them as a table, we can see them as forms. We can also search. So this is when I go to do my shipping and I'm like, where is the dog postcard? And I just search dog and it already comes up A2. I could also see that in here. It's highlighted because that's what I searched for. And that's the whole system. You can also sync this across multiple computers. Does not, as far as I know, have a mobile version. To me, that isn't a big deal, but if it is a big deal to you, there are programs that do sync to mobile app versions that are extremely similar. For the Mac, Tapforms is great. I have used that for some time for another purpose, which is I created my own little database of discontinued products to look for while I'm out and about. Of course, I don't go out and about anymore, thanks to the global health crisis, but if I were to, and I were in some discount store, I could whip out my phone and look at, discontinued brands and see if I could find them to sell on Amazon or eBay at a premium, which is always a fun thing to do. However, less relevant these days, but it's handy to have that synced to your phone. You can also make this whole system considerably more complex and track other things. In fact, you can use it as a fairly complex inventory tracking system. You could say add another field here for whether the item is sold or not, and you can put in all the pricing information if you like, and you can use this to actually figure out what inventory you've bought and sold and still have at the end of the year. You could add dates, you can add costs, you can add COGS, you can do all kinds of stuff. For me, I just use this to physically track where the inventory is, and I actually just delete records when I ship an item out. So if I've sold dog postcard, then it gets deleted and it doesn't exist in my inventory anymore. I use a totally different system to do all my bookkeeping and stuff for taxes, so it's fine for me to do this way, but you could adapt this to cover multiple bases if you feel like it. So I hope this idea of logging your inventory in a database instead of on individual platforms or in a cumbersome spreadsheet is a helpful one for you. Obviously, there's a million ways you can do it, and you can really customize it to your needs. This is a great little piece of software because it's open source and free and cross-platform, but there's lots of other ones out there. Just choose the one that has the features you want. All right. Thank you. Please do subscribe and hit the thumbs up, and take care.